the Financial Survival Network, helping you to survive and thrive in the new economy. To find out where to buy gold and silver reliably at great prices, go get your free Financial Survival Toolkit at financialsurvivalnetwork.com. You'll also get our complimentary newsletter. This is the Financial Survival Network.
1490 WGCH. This is Kerry Lutz, and you're listening to the Financial Survival Network, which is brought to you by Miles Franklin. They've been in business selling gold and silver for over 20 years, and I'm a customer because when you buy, they ship. For more information, find them on the web at milesfranklin.com or give them a call at 800-822-8080 and get a free quote. On the phone with us now is a good friend of mine, Jay Taylor. Jay's got a radio show. He's also been publishing a mining newsletter for I think it's more than 30 years now. We are really happy to have him on the show to talk about where you can find the real news. Jay, are you there?
I'm here.
Hey, welcome. You know, you are my first live call-in guest on the Financial Survival Network. Oh,
fantastic. Well, I'm glad.
I couldn't think of a better person, somebody I'd rather have on the show live. I've had some people in the studio before, but what I wanted to talk to you about, you've been doing this a long time. You've been reading the mainstream newspapers quite a while. You and I are both what I would call in the alternative truth-telling news department. You agree with that?
Oh, absolutely, Kerry. I think there's no doubt. And it's not that the people necessarily mean to be not telling the truth, the ones in the mainstream. It's more that they've been indoctrinated, I think, to think within certain confines, within certain limits. I'm not saying there aren't people that are knowingly falsifying things, but I think most people are decent people who just have a set of beliefs that have been ingrained in them through our system, through our educational system, and you and I have talked about economics and the Austrian School of Economics. Well, it doesn't seem to fit or benefit a lot of the people that are running the current racket, let's say, the Federal Reserve, because they have a way now of getting rid of, if you get rid of free market economics, you can give certain advantages to the people that are in power. And I think that's what the current economic, let's say the religion of today is Keynesianism still, even though it was proven didn't work in the 1930s. They continue to use it and think that they just didn't use it effectively enough. So this time, by gosh, they're going to do it really well. They're going to get out ahead of it and really slam the Keynesian economic theory into policy. And they're doing it. And Kerry, I don't see that it's working, but nonetheless, it's the religion. And so people, it's the economic religion of the day. So the Paul Krugmans of this world are out there talking about it and making a lot of noise about it and contradicting themselves. But nonetheless, everybody's been taught this. How many schools are out there that have Austrian economics? Very, very few. Real free market economics is Austrian economics, and yet we were all taught in our Economics 101 class Keynesian economics. And so you have all these guys with fancy PhDs from fancy universities that believe it. It is a religion, and people aren't really looking at it seriously. So I think that your show, my show, and a lot of other people on the internet in particular are really providing a service and alternative, at least giving people something else to look at and to consider and to think about. That's all. We're not, I know you well enough to know you are not trying to slam anything home. You're saying, here it is, folks, examine the evidence.
Yeah, take it or leave it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And, all this time you spent on Wall Street, and you're in the mainstream of the financial system, and did you ever think you would be in this situation now where you feel like you're telling the truth and it's you and me and others of our ilk against the establishment?
Well, I think it sort of grew on me gradually as I worked with some major banks in New York City. I think one of the times, I think when it first started to dawn on me was back when Ross Perot was running for office. And the bank that I was working with was very big in Mexico, and it was a foreign bank, and there was a U.S. bank that was very big in Mexico, and they were charging huge amounts of interest rates, knowing full well that if things went bad, as they inevitably would, because the rates were high, because of the very risky loans, that they'd get bailed out by the by the government, by the taxpayers. And then I realized that, Ross Perot was against NAFTA, against the very things that all of my buddies at the bank were in favor of, because it was going to make us richer and bigger bonuses and so forth. And then I started to realize that, wait a minute, we've got Republicans and we got Democrats. They're both permissible, their views, and both of them were to retain NAFTA. And then you have Ross Perot, but nobody that was respectable could take and even consider Ross Perot's views. So I'm not saying I'm either pro or against Ross Perot, but I think the fact that nobody would even consider some of the things he was saying, which to me was sort of a light that shined in the darkness at that time. And I started realizing, well, wait a minute, this isn't about America. This is about my own selfish interest. It's not about what's better for our country. It's not about free market economics and letting everybody compete on an even playing field. It's all about, can I use my power and influence to take advantage of someone else? And I think that, Carrie, I think that's what's going on in America, and I think that's what's making this and is really causing us all these problems.
What you're describing is some have called crony capitalism. I object to that moniker because it's not really capitalism, it's fascism. But look at the economy now in the U.S., around the world. Do you think that we're in another Great Depression, Jay?
Yeah, I think we do, and that's one area that I would agree with Paul Krugman on. I mean, he's saying that. His remedies are exactly opposite of what I would prescribe. But yeah, I mean, I think there's no doubt about it. And actually, if you look at an independent economist and a guy who used to work Bureau of Labor Statistics, economist John Williams, he looks at unemployment and inflation and other measures using the same yardstick that was used in the past. And if you do that, because we don't count people that get discouraged anymore looking for work, if you counted all the able-bodied people out there, we'd be a 22% or so unemployment, which rivals that of the 30s. And by the way, we're not anywhere near the end of this thing yet, unfortunately, Carrie, because I look at GDP, debt to GDP, and the debt to GDP levels are so far in excess of anything that we ever had before, including 1932, when it was the previous peak. I think we were right around, if memory serves me correctly, about 225%. Right. Well, we're at 320 or so now. So, it's really, the debt is the problem. And here's the reason. I mean, Krugman would have Bernanke print endless amounts of money, but the problem is you're not really printing money. What you're doing is, Carrie, in this system, it's a double-entry system. So when money is created, it's created from debt. Debt is the raw material from which money is created. So every time Mr. Bernanke creates $2 trillion more, he's got $2 trillion worth of debt on the books somewhere. So, and debt is growing exponentially, and income is growing in a linear fashion. So I believe that it's not a liquidity problem as much as it is an insolvency, a worldwide insolvency problem. The world is broke, especially the Western world.
Yeah. Can't afford, right? We can't afford to service the debt.
No.
And that leads to the next question. How bad can this thing get? Riots, civil unrest, or worse?
Well, I think that's unfortunately the case, and we see in Greece what happens. We take a lot of things for granted. We get up in the morning, we turn on our car, we expect the car is going to go, we can get to work. We go into our office, the air conditioning, we expect it's going to be on. Well, what happens when things aren't on the store shelves? And this was what happened in the Soviet Union, of course, when it broke down. It's happening now. We're hearing reports in Greece where they're not being able to get their medications. Things grind to a halt if people don't get paid. And this is what I think. I mean, I hope I'm wrong about this. I know, Carrie, you hope you're wrong about your projections of this all too. But just look at what's going on and then try to prepare for it. And I think people should be preparing now. The establishment doesn't want you to think this way. They don't want you to lose confidence in their policy because they know you'll vote them out, and they don't want that. So they're always giving us this happy talk. But we have to look at the reality as best we can. The fact is, Americans trust their government still to a very, very great extent, and foreigners don't. To a great extent. I mean, the Chinese and the Russians and people don't. They're always very skeptical. But we have all these fancy PhDs dressed in Brooks Brothers suits on television, speaking silver-tongued speakers, and you saying, gosh, that guy looks really decent, looks really good. He would never lie to us. And I've had people on my own radio show, Dmitry Orlov being one from the Soviet Union went through that process in the Soviet when it broke down. He said, Jay, we have the greatest propaganda machine in the world here in the United States. He says, in the Soviet Union, you saw the hammer and sickle on the wall, and you knew the thugs that would beat the hell out of you if you talked back to them or disagreed with them. But here we have these people in fancy suits speaking, from Harvard, Princeton, and Yale, and we sort of believe them. And we go along with the system. But if things break down, we don't want that. Who wants it? But it's a matter of preparing for the worst, hoping for the best.
That's the next question is, if you're Joe Sixpack, if you are looking to protect yourself, you want to protect you and your family and what little wealth you might have left, what's the best way to do that? I mean, I have my opinions, but just tell us yours. Well,
certainly, you start with the monetary system, and what we have is it is really an immoral monetary system. It's a system that allows and permits and enables legalized theft. So the first thing you want to do is retain your wealth with something that's real, tangible. And of course, because of its attributes, gold and silver, they've always been monetary metals. So I think you start with that. But honestly, Carrie, if we're talking about things like a breakdown in the system, I live in Queens, New York, and if the transportation is blocked and the bridges are blown up or something, God forbid, would happen awful like that, or the system just breaks down financially and you can't get things to the shelves, store items, things to the store's shelves, then what do? Well, I think people should think in terms of having water and food and those kind of things available, and not just, because things do happen from time to time. We had Katrina and things like that. Natural disasters as well as man-made problems occur, and so I think people should be thinking of those things. And then another thing I think people should really do is make friends. I think people need to make friends with their neighbors and learn to help each other out, because when times get really tough, you're going to turn to your friends and to people that you can work with and help to protect one with another. Some people advocate arms. I'm not one to I don't own a gun, frankly. I've just never gotten into it.
But your wife does, though, right?
She less than me. No, of course, in New York State, it's a pretty difficult.
It's an onerous task to get it.
To get one, if I wanted one.
Yeah.
But some people say that, and if I'm living out in the Midwest or out in the West somewhere, maybe
Texas,
I don't know.
Florida,
Texas, you have to own one to be a citizen there, I think.
Yeah, I thought it was in the Constitution.
Almost.
So Jay, just wrapping up, you've been doing this a long time now. Your focus, your purpose has shifted. What's the part of your work that you enjoy the most? And asking you this, I know it's not the money that you're into. You're doing something more than that. But what do you like best about what you're doing?
Well, I enjoy the radio work that I do very much, and I enjoy trying to help people do the things we were just talking about. How can we help people protect themselves? How can we help people see what's really going on behind the throne? Where's the power behind the throne? What is causing this system to go haywire the way it is? And there's a lot of satisfaction on my own radio show. We have a lot of really interesting people, as you do on yours, Carrie. We have people like Daniel Esterlin. We've had Ed Griffin, Ellen Brown, John Perkins, people like that sort of help people see what is really going on, the powers behind the throne, follow the money, and who has control of the system. So help to educate people so they understand why things are happening. The endless quantitative easings are no mystery when you start to realize who benefits. And then we look at more practical people. We have Mark Faber's, David Tice's, Ron Paul's been on a show, Doug Casey, Rick Rule, people that can help people understand the markets and where they, what's likely to happen next in the equity markets and all kinds of markets. I think at the bottom line, Carrie, is helping other people. I think that's what gives most satisfaction. I know that's true of you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I'm here for. Jay, to find out more about you, get your radio show, your publications, where should people go?
The best place to go is J. Taylor Media. That's JAYTAYLOR Media.com. jtaylormedia.com, and from there they can click onto a button and go right to my radio show, which is a web-based show, and all my newsletters. And I have a couple of excellent colleagues, Chen Lin for one, sells a newsletter that is absolutely fabulous. He's turned $5,400 into $1.5 million over the last 7 or 8 years.
Good deal.
Very successful investor. People can subscribe to his work as well as my letter and another one or two. Lots of things at jtaylormedia.com.
All right, Jay. Hey, thank you so much for being on the show. It's really been a pleasure. And together, hopefully, we'll keep bringing more and more people into the fight, banish ignorance, especially financial ignorance.
Let's do it, Kerry.
All right, Jay. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you.